Hi, welcome to video 10. I hope you've watched at least videos 8 and 9 in the series. Of course, this video I want to build on the ideas before, give you a few more ideas. I want to focus on the bigger healing process that goes with PTSD, and a little bit in this video, particularly for soldiers and police. I'll get to the particular quirks for some other groups in future videos. Now, I assume that you are okay with these following ideas, because that's the basic premise, and we'll build on them. So firstly, life is a process. You have your own personality, you have your own plan for your life, and you are living it. Secondly, you, all of us, are always in a state of change. Now, maybe you keep changing what you want in here, so you have to keep trying to change your circumstances, and maybe your circumstances keep changing for reasons apart from what you are doing to them. But whichever way it goes, things are always in a state of change. Your circumstances are always changing, and you've got to keep changing your mind to sort of keep the two reasonably in sync. Okay? So this leads us to, you want to keep getting what you want out of life, you have to keep adapting. Got that? You got to keep adapting. So you've got to keep changing what you think in here, so that it matches what's happening now, sort of out there in the world. Emotional trauma happens when something happens to you, but it is too big, too nasty, too shocking. You can't adapt to it, or not easily at least. It really shakes you up. So that's when you get this, I'm lost, confused, angry, frustrated, scared, sad, depressed, all sorts of bad emotional stuff. You may not be able to sort of pull it apart and label it. You just feel really swamped and rotten. I've also explained to you how me working as a spiritual healer can get a different angle on this process. I can see the energy bodies that come with you. I can see how different events have left an imprint or an impression, and I can see how these things are all out of balance. Now, as part of what I can do for you, the little healing process, basically I sort of plug in, pray, God rearranges all those energy patterns for you. And that's a big, big help in helping you to rebalance all of the stuff that's happening inside of you. Now, that energy healing process that I did at the end of video 9, probably that's the most important step in your overall healing. But it is definitely not the only step. There's lots of other things that need to happen, and a lot of it you need to do to help yourself. You may have to get a lot of help, but you need to make some changes and to consciously think about it yourself. Now, the total healing process broadly involves several stages. So obviously, the first thing is you need to get out of that dangerous or traumatic situation. You can't heal the burn while you're still getting burned by the fire. Get out of the fire. So get away, find yourself a relatively safe space. That's step 1. Now, step 2, you need a clear head and a relaxed body so you can think straight. Now, this is where my healing process in the last video will help you enormously. Watch it, do the process. You can do it multiple times, as often as you like, but you've got to get relaxed body, clear head, so you can start to think straight about what the heck has happened and what's going on. Okay. After the clear head, your next task, you have to make sense of what has just happened. So you'd be thinking, well, what's going on here? How did I get into this situation? What did I do to put myself in it? Why am I here? Then you'd think, well, what happened? What happened in the circumstances? And then you'd be thinking, what happened inside me to my thinking and my feeling in response to what's happened in the circumstance? Somewhere when you start putting this together, hopefully you can figure out what you learned from that experience. Part of the life plan thing says you put yourself in there, you got the experience that you wanted or needed or asked for somehow. Now you got to learn from it. Okay, so what did you learn? Now, following on from that, you have to rethink who you are now. If this was a big, scary circumstance, experience, and you've got to make some major changes on the inside to adapt to who you think you are and how you think the world works, well, who are you now? Where are you now? And from that, what do you want to become next? What's the next experience, or what's the next sort of phase of your life? Now, if that's a whole lot different, you might have to sit down and start working out a plan. How can I get from where I am now to where I want to be in this next phase of my life? Okay, that might sound like it's nice, simple steps. Get out of the physical trauma situation, get a relaxed mind and body so you can think about it, make some sense of what happened, decide what you learned and who you are now, and decide what to do next. All sounds nice and simple, but most people can't do it quite as easily as I just described it. Now, next related idea, to some extent, trauma is going to happen to everybody at some point in their lives. Now, sure, the kinds of trauma, the number of traumas, the extent of the traumas, all of these things are going to be different. But sooner or later, everybody is going to have some big traumatic experiences and they're going to have to adapt to it. That's life. Okay? So it happens to everybody to some extent. Now, as a plant therapist, when I see someone who turns up and says, I've got PTSD, even if they don't tell me they've got PTSD, I'm probably still looking for similar things. But I'll get them to talk to me and I'll understand them as a person and their situation. But sort of what I'm looking for fits into a broad pattern. And you can try and copy some of this and make sense for yourself, or you can use this pattern to try and figure out your own life. Now, personal details will be different. Everybody has their own little personal quirk, situation, personality, but broad pattern is, firstly, each person has some kind of a personality characteristic, a little personality quirk, but there's something about them that led them to be in that situation. Okay, the situation that they're in then gives them certain experiences. One or more of these experiences, and there might be a whole stack, or there might be just one out of thousands of experiences, but something in that set of experiences that you put yourself in is traumatic for you. It has left you really, really shaken up. Okay, so next thing I'll be asking about is what's happened since the traumatic experience. Now, a lot of this is what have you been doing to try and help yourself or help the situation? And what have you been doing to try and adapt? Has it helped? Has it worked? Did it make things worse? But, stuff happened. What are you doing already to try and deal with it? And, of course, this leads to lots of questions like, what are you doing now to make some positive adjustments? And of course, the extremes here, some people will be doing nothing. They'll just be wallowing in their self-pity or their righteous indignation, and they'll be whinging about how badly life has treated them. Okay, I can understand that, and I might even be sympathetic to it, but it doesn't help solve your problem. Other people will have already sort of steamed ahead, tried lots of things, solved most of the problem, but not quite, and they just need a bit of help to tidy up the loose edges. And everybody somewhere in between. Okay, let's have a think about how these things apply to soldiers in particular, but anybody in the military who's in the front line, and then how they apply to the police. Again, it's more the frontline guys that are going to get most of the traumatic experiences. So remember, personal quirk that got them there, what's happened once they are there, and what particular is the trauma thing that's shaken them up. So how bad do they feel about that, and what are they doing about it? That's the broad picture. All right, focus on soldiers. The personal quirk, they've usually got one, maybe more, but somewhere deep down, some of them are not very deep, that they're some kind of adventure seeker, a risk taker, a thrill seeker. They might have a sort of angry or violent streak already. Maybe they've had a rough childhood. Maybe some of them already sort of skirting with a few questionable legal things. But, whatever, there is this part in there that's quite okay and looking for a bit of action. And they're okay with a bit of action and danger. Now, the army is attractive to them. It gives them a socially acceptable outlet for their personality. They'll get taught lots of skills, training, offer discipline, comradeship, chance to travel to wild places, opportunities for combat and taking risks, all the sort of stuff that might appeal to that adventure seeker kind of character. So once you're in the army, you might be there for a couple of months, so you might be there for a whole lifetime. Typically, this is going to involve some kind of experience of violence and destruction. You might be there as just a witness to it. You might be involved in the doer of this violence. You might be involved as the victim, where someone else is doing the violence to you. And this can happen on a number of occasions. I once heard a simple description for a soldier's job as you kill people and blow stuff up. Now, I'm sure there's more to it than that. It's a very simple kind of description, but there's a big element of truth in it. I mean, just bear that in mind. Soldier's job, kill people, blow stuff up. Now, maybe they will get some kind of recognised problem, their mental, emotional, whatever, nervous breakdown while they're still in the army, and then they get discharged because of it, or maybe they just do the job, they get discharged, and then they sort of realise they've got all these problems afterwards. Pardon me. But either way, they'll find themselves out of the service and struggling to adapt to life as a civilian, doing very different stuff in a very different environment. And a couple of obvious crunch points for them. If they had a family, they might be in danger of losing the family. If you go home and start acting all crazy, there's only so much the wife and kids can put up with. Unless their skills are easily transferable to a civilian type job, they might have trouble finding a job. Okay. I guess the real crunch point comes. You've got your PTSD, you're all confused, angry, frustrated, annoyed, sad, lots of things. You don't quite know where to do about it, where to go, what to do. How are you going to spend your time? Some guys will spend their time doing rounds of unsatisfactory medical appointments and drugs and alcohol and things. Might help a little bit, but basically they've still got a big chunk of a problem. Maybe they'll get really serious about helping themselves and trying to create a better life, and maybe they're the kind of guys who'll be watching the video voluntarily. But somewhere here, what they're trying to do is they're trying to redefine sort of who they are. They're trying to get a better map on how this civilian life works, and they're trying to fit into this new set of social circumstances. Now, maybe I can help you think about it by telling you the sorts of things that I would be looking for. common problems that crop up. Now, you're not going to get all the answers straight away, but at least you get places to start thinking, talking about. Okay, first thing is you had that personal quirk, those sort of personal issues before you went into the army. Now, probably they're still not resolved, so you could be looking at childhood stuff or something way, way back that did make you sort of angry, an adventure seeker, or a risk taker. If you haven't sorted that out, then it's still there as a personal quirk and you'll still be looking for this action. Okay, now, once you got into the army, they may have given you an avenue so you can hide that problem, but they add extra problems, like layers, problems on top of problems. The next problem for you is they will teach you how to be a warrior. And part of this is they'll teach you how to crank up your adrenaline levels. They'll teach you how to run on adrenaline. Now, this is great. It gets you sort of hyper alert, gives you more stamina, more action, go, go, go. It makes you a better warrior. But you can't live in this high state of alert with living on adrenaline and your adrenal glands pumping flat out. You can get there and you can stay there for a while and it makes you a better fighter and might help you survive in a battle situation, which is good. That's sort of what the army wants. But the army never teaches you how to turn this off. They never teach you how to relax and how to get back to a normal, relaxed, healthy way of living. Okay, so there's your next level of problem. It's a bit like they turn you into some kind of energizer bunny. You run and run and run and run and go and go and go and fight until you burn out and you grind to a halt. But it's not like the energizer bunny anymore because you can't simply stuff a new battery in there and off you go again. Soldiers are people, not bunnies. When they hit adrenal exhaustion and fatigue, they've got a real problem, physical as well as mental, emotional stuff. Right? That's your second level of problem. The third level of problems is the traumatic experiences that have messed up your minds. Now, this is the obvious bit that soldiers, well, they know it's there, and now the rest of the world kind of recognises it's a bit of a problem. And this is the part that people see as the PTSD, the post-trauma stress disorder. Now, I'm sure it's there and I recognise it, but it is not the only problem. It is like one part of this bigger problem of turning you into a happy, normal person. Okay, another level of problem. Just being away from home and normal society creates many of its own stresses. So if you become a soldier, you get packed off to a war zone overseas somewhere, you are living in some sort of crazy parallel universe for a while, and you have to learn to adapt there. Now, only people who've been and seen and done that truly understand. Now, these will be your comrades. But while you're away in your parallel universe doing your thing, your family has been at home, relatively safe, leading a fairly routine, boring sort of life. When you come back to them, you're going to have to make a heck of a big adjustment. They won't understand where you've been, what you've done. They've got no clue. And you don't want them to go to your parallel universe to understand. So you're going to have to adapt to them. And remember, you had a little personality quirk to start with as an adventure seeker. You've been turned into an energizer bunny and go, 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 and permanently in this stressful alert state. You've had all your traumatic experiences, and you have missed out on all of these normal, routine, family, civilian kind of experiences. Okay? How are you going to adjust to all of these? Now, very few people can handle all of these adjustments without getting some kind of serious help. Now, I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm sure there are people who can and have adapted, but it's not easy. And it is almost typical of these guys that they will refuse help. They will want to tough it out. They will want to deny that there is a problem. They might see it as a sign of weakness. They might have been told that you never talk about these things because no one else will understand and other people will condemn you. Whatever the reason, they are often not willing to talk about it, not willing to seek help. Now, if you happen to be the wife, the mother, the girlfriend, the dad, and any kind of caring person who's looking after these guys, you might be the one that has to drag them to go and get some help. Even if you only drag them as far as a couple of these videos, that's a huge step in the right direction. Okay. Now, if you started by watching this video, then probably the next thing you ought to do is go back to video 9 and do the healing session at the end of it. Now, as many times as it takes. All you got to do is just sit there and veg out with the video playing in front of you. But you got to get that clear head and relaxed body. Then you've got to start getting prepared to think about and talk about your different experiences so you can help make sense of them and start trying to create this new, better person who can live in this more peaceful, normal sort of society in Australia. Okay, good luck. It's not going to take you 5 minutes and it won't necessarily be real easy, but I'm trying to help. Okay, let's have a think about the police. You can extend this a little bit to other emergency services kind of personnel, but police are the front line and they get some of the publicity as well. Okay, so once again, we're looking for the personal quirks that put them there, the circumstances and the experience, the traumas, and then what are you going to do to make your adjustments? Right. The personal quirk for police is they think the world, society should be a certain way. It should have a set of rules to keep it a civilized place, and people should follow the rules. Except these guys, they're prepared to step up into that firing line and do something about it to try and make it work that way, to make people follow the rules. Now, this means they're prepared to take some personal risks to help keep other people from harm. It's sort of like a self-sacrificing quirk. It's there. It often makes these guys seem like really good guys in society, and a lot of them are, but there's still only so much crap they can take. Anyway, there's our personal quirk. We think society should be a certain way, and we're prepared to jump up there, put ourselves at risk to try and make society that good way that we think it should be. So they go join the police force, they get all the appropriate training, learn all the right procedures. If the soldier's job was to kill people and blow stuff up, a simple description of the police job might be something like to protect people from harming themselves and each other. And of course that means you're in the middle of the fight most of the time. Okay, on the job, they're going to put themselves in harm's way and they're going to be cleaning up the results of violence. Traffic accidents, drug and alcohol problems, and there's plenty of them to go around. Domestic violence, again, plenty of that. Different sort of assaults on other people, on them. You get civil protests and riots, you get robberies, you get murders, you get the whole gamut of the dark side of what goes on in any society. The effect of these experiences, it accumulates. It's like sort of building blocks. Maybe they'll hit some particular trigger where they have a snap kind of experience, or maybe these things will just build up where they get to an overwhelming load. But mostly they'll sort of push on with the job, like the job is more important than my own sanity, and they'll just keep going until they really can't function anymore. They hit that brick wall. And here's the next quirk for our policemen. A lot of our police forces generally are not very good at looking after their own members. So the police themselves do a good job of getting out there sorting out other people's problems, but the police force isn't good at helping their own police people sort out their own emotional problems. So instead of getting some real help, they're more likely to get poorly treated, maybe discharged, without a whole lot of assistance, and sometimes with not even any thanks for their troubles, which of course makes a bad situation worse. Some of these guys will turn to alcohol, they'll take their frustrations out on their family, but they are seriously damaged goods by now. Okay, eventually they'll get to a point where they've got some kind of a choice. And I've known some of these guys that they will sit at home every day. They'll work through hours of TV, usually sport, racing, whatever, and they will drink their way through a slab of beer or a couple of litres of wine, maybe both on a bad day. And they'll be feeling sorry for themselves and a bit cranky about the world because it's treated them so badly when they only wanted to help. And I can understand that, but you can't stay there. It's a miserable existence for you and your family if they can put up with you and if they're still sticking around. Of course, the other option is you can make some big decisions. You can start looking for some real help and start trying to heal and redesign a whole new life. Now, also, a bit like the soldiers, police are usually not that good at asking for help. So if you're the someone close to them, you might have to take the lead and you might have to drag them into that help situation. But don't expect it to be easy. And again, like the soldiers, an excellent place to start, which is a very low risk situation for you, is you can watch video number 9 and you can soak up the healing session. And you can keep doing it as many times as it takes until you start getting a clearer head and a more relaxed body. Okay, then, and you probably will need the help, then you still need someone to talk to who might help you to make sense of it and help you to refocus on building a new you and a new life for you. Okay, I hope that's been of some help, but that's enough of my talking for now. See you next time.